left his pregnant wife to save Mistress. What she did next shocked everyone. He never looked back the day he walked out of the house, leaving behind his pregnant wife standing at the door, begging him not to go. The tears in her eyes were not enough to stop him. Her hands cradled her stomach as her voice cracked, but his heart was already captured by someone else, a woman who made him feel alive, reckless, free. His excuse. Love. His truth. Session. The wife who had been with him through every low, every wound and recovery, was now too familiar, too routine. He didn't want comfort, he wanted chaos. And so he chose the Mistress. The world fell silent for her that day. All the dreams she had for her unborn child now floated in uncertainty. Days turned into nights filled with unanswered questions, hollow cries and silent prayers. Her body carried a child, but her heart carried abandonment. She still made dinner for two every night, even though the chair across from her remained empty. She still folded his clothes that he had left behind, whispering to herself that maybe, just maybe, he'd return. But he didn't. Instead, he poured himself into the Mistress, shielding her from every inconvenience, funding her whims, and living in an illusion of happiness. He told himself he had made the right choice, that he deserved to live on his terms. But with every smile the Mistress gave, it felt borrowed. With every kiss it felt performed. Her love came with conditions, with selfishness, with expectations wrapped in ribbons of manipulation. Still he held on, trying to prove to himself that this chaos was worth leaving behind the calm. Meanwhile, the pregnant woman began to rebuild in silence. Her strength grew not just from the life inside her but from the devastation around her. She didn't run after him. She didn't curse his name. She cried in private, broke down in the bathroom, but showed courage in public. She worked double shifts, started attending therapy, and read every parenting book she could find. She refused to let her heartbreak become her identity. Instead, she used it as fuel. The delivery room was a battlefield of emotions. No partner held her hand, no husband whispered encouragement, yet she smiled through the pain. The moment she heard the baby's first cry, she knew her life had just been rewritten. That tiny heartbeat gave her purpose greater than any love story ever could. She named the child after hope, silently vowing never to let pain break her again. While she raised the baby alone, he was busy discovering that lust without loyalty is poison. The Mistress began to change. Her demands multiplied, her patience evaporated, and the arguments grew frequent. She complained about everything, the money, the time, the life they were building. Eventually she asked for space, then money, then another man. And just like that she walked out too. Only this time he was the one left at the door, begging. But no one came back. Shame washed over him like rain. He returned to the house he once shared, hoping to see the woman who once loved him unconditionally, only to find it empty, echoing with the ghost of his decisions. There was no trace of her, not a single letter or clue where she had gone. The neighborhood had changed. People avoided him. He was just a memory walking on broken promises. But she hadn't disappeared. She had transformed. One day, in a luxurious boardroom of a rising multinational company, a poised and confident woman walked in. She wasn't wearing pain anymore. She wore power. Her presence silenced the room. She had built her empire from scratch, working nights, studying during the baby's naps, selling handmade crafts online, and then starting a consultancy that turned into a multimillion-dollar brand. She had become the woman no one thought she could be, the one he underestimated. And the most shocking twist. She wasn't alone. The CEO of the company that had once mentored her had seen something in her that no one else did. He didn't just invest in her ideas. He fell in love with her resilience, her mind, her scars. She didn't chase love again. It found her. Slowly, respectfully. And when she was ready, she gave it a chance. They married in a private ceremony surrounded by a few loyal friends and her child, who now called the CEO Dad without hesitation. Their bond was real, unforced, and deeply human. The man she once cried for didn't even receive an invite. He only found out about it from social media, An image of her holding hands with the CEO and the child smiling brighter than ever broke him. Now he sits alone, watching that image on repeat, wondering how the woman he abandoned became everything he ever wanted. But this story isn't over yet, because something unexpected is coming. A truth buried in the past. A letter never delivered. A betrayal far deeper than infidelity. A suspense that will unravel every belief they once had. She stood at the doorway, barefoot and trembling, one hand resting gently over the small swell of her stomach. Her eyes, red from hours of crying, pleaded silently as the man she had vowed her life to tossed his suitcase into the back of his car. No goodbye, no second thought, no glance back. Just the roar of the engine and the echo of abandonment in the cold silence of the home they once dreamed in. He wasn't going to the office or on a business trip. He was rushing to save another woman, the one he called his true soulmate. The one who wasn't carrying his child. The one who wasn't up all night preparing meals or hoping love would return. His mistress had called him in tears, claiming she was on the verge of collapse. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even pause to ask if his pregnant wife needed anything. She collapsed to her knees as the car disappeared from view, the last ounce of strength giving way to the crushing pain in her chest. Her heart screamed louder than her voice ever could. All she could feel was the weight of betrayal and the haunting emptiness of the life she carried alone. But through the heartbreak a fire was lit, small at first but growing hotter with each tear that fell. That night the lights in the house stayed off, the food on the stove burned, and the silence screamed louder than thunder. The days that followed blurred together. She didn't eat much. The nausea from pregnancy was nothing compared to the ache in her soul. She felt unwanted, discarded like something that had expired. Every room reminded her of him. Every corner whispered memories of laughter now turned into cruel echoes. But what hurt the most wasn't just the cheating, it was the choice. He had a family, a home, a child on the way. And he chose someone else. She had sacrificed everything for him, supported his career, encouraged him when no one believed. And now she was just the woman left behind. The news of their separation spread like wildfire. People talked, gossiped, some pitied her, some mocked her silence. But none truly understood the storm inside her. She decided to disappear for a while, not to hide but to rebuild. She moved out quietly one rainy morning, carrying only the essentials. She didn't want the house. She didn't want the memories. What she wanted now was clarity, purpose, and peace for her unborn child. Months passed. The world assumed she had given up, but she hadn't. Behind closed doors she was transforming. She picked up new skills, attended online seminars, and started writing again. Something she once loved before marriage had consumed her identity. Slowly, painfully, she began to breathe again. Her tears didn't stop entirely, but they came with less force. She no longer cried out of weakness, but from the strength it took to endure. Her child was born in the quiet of the night, with no hand to hold, no congratulations text from the father, and no flowers in the hospital room. But when she held the baby in her arms, something inside her shifted permanently. The love she never received from the man she trusted poured from her into this small, innocent being. And in that moment she promised two things: never to let her child feel abandoned, and never to allow herself to be broken again. Meanwhile, the man who had left her was busy living his version of happiness, or so he thought. The woman he left everything for turned out to be nothing like the fantasy he had created in his mind. She was demanding, insecure, and manipulative. What once seemed like passion now felt like a prison. He would often stare at his phone, scrolling through old pictures of the woman he left behind, the one who once smiled at him with eyes full of trust. Guilt started to fester in his heart, but pride kept him silent. He didn't reach out, didn't ask about the baby, and didn't try to apologize. He convinced himself she was better off without him. But deep down, the silence from her end was louder than any confrontation. He expected her to beg, cry, or lash out. Instead, she vanished, and that stung more than he cared to admit. Her journey wasn't easy. Being a single mother came with challenges that tested every fiber of her being. There were nights the baby cried endlessly, and mornings when she questioned her strength. But she never gave up. With a toddler on her hip, she built a small business from the ground up. Something honest, something hers. She started sharing her story anonymously online, and to her surprise, it resonated with thousands. Women reached out. Strangers offered support. She wasn't alone anymore. One day, during a business conference she was invited to speak at, she crossed paths with someone unexpected. A tall, composed man with kind eyes and a quiet strength. He wasn't flashy or overly charming, but there was something genuine about him. They spoke casually at first, sharing ideas about resilience and recovery. He was a self-made CEO, known for his philanthropic work and emotional intelligence. Unlike the man who once claimed to love her, this one listened. He paid attention. And most of all, he respected her journey. Their connection grew slowly, organically. He never pressured her, never invaded her space. Instead, he supported her silently from the sidelines. And when the time was right, he confessed that her strength had inspired him in ways he couldn't describe. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel again. Not fear, not regret, but hope. Her heart, though cautious, began to believe in love again. When the man who had left her learned of her success and her new relationship, it hit him like a tidal wave. Photos of her smiling confidently at business events, her holding hands with the CEO at a charity gala, and most of all, her child, healthy, happy, and clearly loved, plastered across social media. He was frozen. What he had abandoned had grown into something extraordinary. The woman he left broken was now standing tall, admired, and adored. He tried to reach out, first through texts then a call. But she didn't respond. His voice trembled in the voicemails, apologizing, regretting, remembering. But her silence remained unmoved. He showed up once outside her office, hoping for a conversation. She looked at him through the glass door but didn't open it. Her assistant handed him an envelope instead. Inside was a photo of their child, along with a letter that simply said, "You left us in our weakest moment. We found strength without you. Please respect our peace." He stood there motionless, the words burning into his conscience. It wasn't anger that silenced her. It was growth. She didn't want revenge, and she didn't need closure. She had already closed that chapter. What he had destroyed out of lust, she rebuilt through love, for herself and for the little life that depended on her. As for her, she soon accepted a marriage proposal from the CEO. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was better. It was real. He loved her scars, not despite them but because of them. He didn't ask her to forget her past. He simply asked if he could be a part of her future. And on a warm spring morning, surrounded by those who believed in second chances, she married the man who respected her healing. Her child walked down the aisle with her. There were tears, not of sadness but of pride, of resilience, victory. But just as everything seemed perfect, a shadow from the past loomed again.